Taiwan is tight-lipped once again on a potential visit by U.S. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi as China issues a new warning. The COVID insurance headache that's making some Taiwanese rethink their travel plans. Also ahead.
I'm Yin Khvat for TaiwanPlus, here in the southern county of Pingdong, where one of Taiwan's largest indigenous groups has just convened its first National Assembly.
Plus, a taboo no more. We look at how attitudes to Ghost Month are shifting in modern-day Taiwan. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's foreign ministry has again refused to comment on a potential visit from U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. That's despite multiple domestic and international outlets reporting that Pelosi is set to arrive in Taipei later on Tuesday evening. As tension around the visit builds, China has issued more warnings to the United States of grave consequences if the trip goes ahead. James Chater reports.
Still no official confirmation, but multiple local and international media outlets now reporting that US Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is set to arrive in Taiwan. It was the Financial Times that first reported Pelosi's visit, citing unnamed sources. The UK-based newspaper now saying that Pelosi will meet with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on Wednesday. And unconfirmed reports from local media saying Pelosi will also visit Taiwan's legislature. Pelosi is on a tour of Asia and after meeting with Singapore's Prime Minister and President, flew to Malaysia on Tuesday morning. But speculation over the 82-year-old's visit to Taipei, the first by a US House Speaker in 25 years, has swirled. Beijing views Taiwan as its sovereign territory and strongly opposes any interaction between Taiwan's government and foreign officials. The White House has not announced the visit, but has been careful with its messaging, saying a Pelosi trip to Taiwan would not break new ground.
The Speaker has the right to visit Taiwan, and the Speaker of the House has visited Taiwan before without incident, as have many members of Congress, including this year. Now, the world has seen the United States government be very clear that nothing has changed about our one China policy.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said any blame for a ramping up of tensions would fall squarely at Beijing's feet.
If the Speaker does decide to visit and China tries to create some kind of crisis or otherwise escalate tensions, that would be entirely on Beijing. We are looking for them, in the event she decides to visit, to act responsibly and not to engage in any escalation going forward.
Taiwan's government has remained silent. A foreign ministry spokesperson told TaiwanPlus that they have no further information to share with the media at this moment, nor any comments on this matter. But Beijing's warnings have rung loud, reiterating threats that its military would not stand by if Pelosi lands in Taiwan. What that means, though, remains unclear.
I'm not in a position to tell the details, but what I can tell is that the firmness, the determination is there. We will do whatever we can to defend our sovereignty and the territorial integrity.
In Taiwan, the public waits. For Taiwan, largely excluded from the international stage, visits by high-level foreign officials are seen as lending legitimacy to its government, exactly what China doesn't want. But with Washington and Taipei's relations with Beijing at their lowest in decades, the fear now is that Pelosi's visit could exacerbate an already dangerous situation across the Taiwan Strait. James Chater for TaiwanPlus in Taipei.
TaiwanPlus's Ed Moon is in Jinmen, a Taiwan-governed island in sight of the Chinese coast, to find out how locals feel about Pelosi's possible visit to Taipei.
Today, I'm in the Taiwanese island of Jinmen. It's the closest place in Taiwan to China. Behind me, you can see the Chinese coast easily. And with tensions at an all-time high ahead of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan this evening, I've come here to find out what local people think about her visit.
应该是不会害怕，因为我对这政治的相关比较不了解，我没有在关注这些时事，然后我只知道有看新闻，他有来这样子。
我想他的访台对我们金门人本地来讲，我们是没什么感觉，因为我们跟厦门这边的关系算是蛮友好的啦。台湾可能很多人都不希望他过来啦，就怕破坏这边两边的关系啊，两岸关系啊。因为我们金门这边跟厦门一向都很友好，所以的关系就是比较好，不会像台湾那么紧张，所以我们可能会比较没什么感觉啦，就觉得他来就来了，反正一个晚上走了就走啦，我们是这么觉得啦。那我不知道其他人是怎么想。
For more on how Taiwan has been reacting to the prospect of Pelosi's visit, our reporter Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick spoke with historian Albert Wu from Academia Sinica.
The prospect of Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan has elicited intense debate within the United States. By contrast, Taiwanese reaction officially has been relatively muted. What do you think is behind this? Is it perhaps intentional, a means to avoid taking sides?
I think the Tsai administration has shown a lot of restraint and a lot of discipline in terms of not taking any explicit sides. And I think partly, of course, it's not to anger China or provoke China in unnecessary ways, but I think they're also trying to figure out what American foreign policy is. And as you mentioned, there's a clear sort of divergence between what the Biden administration is thinking and what the Pelosi camp is thinking. So I think the Tsai administration is very cleverly trying to, sort of see where the wind is blowing, and then they'll sort of stake out a claim. But what I've been impressed with is just how disciplined they've been in terms of keeping tight-lipped on the whole situation.
A lot of this debate and alarm in the United States has been prompted by China's belligerent language, but it's also the same language we've heard directed towards Taiwan regularly over the years. You have pointed to what some call a sigh and shrug response from much of the Taiwanese public to these threats. What do you think is behind this? Is it blindness, is it fatalism, is it cool-headed realism, or something else?
My sense is that it's a sort of clear-eyed recognition that there's actually not much that Taiwan can do in this moment, other than sort of what the Tsai administration is doing, which is to sort of wait and see. I think what most people in the US or most of our friends abroad don't understand is that this is sort of the constant background noise. People in Taiwan would be ecstatic if Nancy Pelosi came, but we also recognize that if the visit fell through, then that's just how things go when it comes to Taiwan's sort of limited options within the international sphere. The Taiwanese can't force Pelosi to come or prevent Pelosi from coming, nor can they, prevent China from making belligerent claims. There's certainly certain people who would take a more fatalistic attitude, I think, but I think for the majority of people, it's sort of a recognition of where Taiwan is, an understanding of where it's placed in the world, and in a way that life goes on here.
China has banned imports of products made by more than 100 Taiwanese food and agriculture companies. The targeted companies include several of Taiwan's most popular brands. Beijing announced the ban late Monday on the eve of Nancy Pelosi's expected visit. It's the latest in a line of Chinese bans on Taiwanese food products, including pineapples, wax apples, sugar apples and grouper fish. Taiwan's COVID-19 situation is gradually improving. The country's epidemic task force reported 16,000 new domestic cases on Monday, with 36 COVID-related deaths. Those are both three-month lows. While total case numbers are dropping, the country is recording more local cases of the BA.5 subvariant. 2 new cases have been discovered in Taipei. People in Taiwan are starting to travel more as the country loosens its COVID-19 travel restrictions. But insurance companies are making it harder for travellers who want to head abroad. Bing Wang explains.
As countries start welcoming visitors from around the world, Taiwanese people are jumping on the opportunity to travel again. According to Taiwan's main international airports, 150,000 people traveled overseas last month. That's 100,000 more people than in July last year. But travelers are facing a new risk, a lack of insurance options.
保险业者呢都取消了旅行平安保险、海外的这种突发疾病医疗保单、旅行业契约责任保险里面的旅行不便 目前还是被保险公司在取消的阶段。
That means there's no way for travelers to cover the costs if they get sick in a foreign country. At least 15 of Taiwan's largest travel insurance companies have stopped selling insurance that covers sudden illness, which includes COVID-19. Apart from the risk posed to travelers, it also means that it's now practically impossible to travel to countries which require COVID coverage. Insurance brokers have said that insurers are losing money.
因为疫情的关系嘛，所以民众呢很多都有买防疫险，对不对？那因为在防疫险的理赔上，大部分的保险公司都超出了这个可以负荷的范围。但是因为在国外的部分还是有很多比较难掌控的趋势，所以它会影响保险公司对于危险的估计。
People are saying that a lack of insurance options mean they'd rather not travel at all.
如果因为没有医疗保障的话，可能现在变种病毒那么多，可能就是不会出国。
After almost 3 years of the COVID-19 pandemic and with Taiwan loosening its quarantine restrictions, there's concern this decision by insurance companies could damage the tourism industry just as it starts to recover. Kama Xu and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan celebrated its National Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. In the southern county of Pingdong, the Taiwan people, the country's second largest indigenous group, convened their first National Assembly. Rick Lau reports.
Members of the Taiwan National Assembly take their oath of office in a small rural village in southern Taiwan. They hope this newly established legislature, made up of representatives from the Taiwan Indigenous group in villages and communities across southern Taiwan, can give them more power and control over their own affairs.
I think it's time to get together all the powers, all the voices from the different Taiwan communities to get together, and then we have like a how to say, we have the platform to talk to each other, and then the Taiwan parliaments, they have their own how say board organization, board team, so they can bring our voices, even the little voices from the community, to the world or to the Taiwanese government.
Taiwan is home to 600,000 indigenous people. For centuries, they were mistreated, their lands taken away, and their culture and language repressed. After current President Tsai Ing-wen was elected in 2016, she issued an apology to indigenous people and passed a law protecting and promoting indigenous rights. Taiwan, of which there are about 100,000, is the second largest indigenous group in the nation. This is the first time Taiwan people have had their own formal legislative body, and is expected to be the largest indigenous assembly in the country. The people elected here will discuss matters concerning the community, such as land, the local economy, and protecting Taiwan customs and languages. But they also have a bigger mission: to encourage the government to recognize indigenous people as the rightful owners of Taiwan and grant them greater autonomy.
我们成立民族议会。第一个最主要就是我们民族的地位要重新再确立。我们是台湾的主人，如果说包括外来的民族的话，我们也是长子，那我们必须要存在的地位跟实质的价值。那既然要有存在的地位，我们必须要走向民主自治的一个政治行政体系。
The original inhabitants of Taiwan have for years been treated like second-class citizens in their own homeland. But with the convening of this assembly, they hope one day to meet Taiwan's government on an equal footing. James Rayner and Rick Lowett in Pingdong County for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up here on TaiwanPlus, how one man is cleaning the trash from Florida's mangrove swamps, 1 ton at a time.
What makes this island nation exceptionally punch way above its might? It's the fascinating human stories we heard, plus the greatest movies we saw. The enduring and painstaking past we learned, plus the beautiful people we met. The delightful cuisines we tasted, plus the coexistence of many cultures we embraced. The powerful, energizing technology we invented, plus the ancient masterpieces we preserved. The human rights we advanced, plus the motherland we called home. TaiwanPlus. We will continue to show you unheard, compelling stories that touch our hearts. Come with us as we embark on yet another unraveling journey to the world.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan has reported its smallest gender income gap in more than a decade. A report from the Finance Ministry revealed that in 2020, men earned 1.5 times what women did on average. The average income for men was nearly $22,000. It is the first time the gender pay gap has fallen to this level since the ministry began tracking the data in 2006. Ghost Month is underway in Taiwan. Traditionally, this means avoiding water activities because it's believed ghosts can pull swimmers underwater and drown them. But as Yu Jinhuang reports, those beliefs are changing.
A seaside full of people doing water activities. It looks like a typical hot summer weekend in Taiwan. But for the older generation, water sports could be an invitation to danger. Taoists and Buddhists believe that during this month, the ghosts are released from hell and allowed to roam the earth. Some temples will even close the gates in front of the gods, as though the gods are turning a blind eye on the ghost activities for the coming month. But attitudes toward Ghost Month taboos are shifting.
有时候就是老人说，就是尽量在家里就在家里，还是就是如果要出去买东西还是什么，我也是没关系，就出去然后赶快回来是这样。
因为其实不管是鬼月或一般日子，我们进行水上活动，任何活动都要注意自身的安全。因为通常这里出事的都是他没有带辅具。
In the past, it would have been very unusual to have an art exhibition during Ghost Month, featuring spooky things like the gates of hell and paper money burned for the dead. But in modern-day Taiwan, many people are shrugging off these taboos. And displays like these can actually draw a crowd and spark a conversation.
过去谈论这些事情，我们是如何想象鬼怪的，我们是如何害怕鬼怪的。这件事情其实是让我们团结起来的，让我们意识到我们是同一个文化圈的方法啊。那反过来说，如果我们今天刻意的，譬如大家本来在那边讲鬼故事，讲很开心，忽然就有一个人跳出来说，不，你们现在讲都是假的哈，鬼怪是不存在的。这个人看起来不就很讨厌吗？
Ghosts were created to explain irrational fears and warn people away from danger. And while belief in the supernatural is less prevalent in Taiwan, some superstitions remain. That's because they connect us to our ancestors and to one another. Taipei Yo, Klein Wang, Cindy Ji, and Yu Jinhuang for TaiwanPlus.
The US says it has killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in a drone strike in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Al-Zawahiri helped the group's former leader, Osama bin Laden, plan the September 11th attacks in 2001 that targeted the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. US President Joe Biden announced the news in an evening address from the White House. He said the operation had delivered justice and, quote, one more measure of closure to the families of the victims of 9/11. Flooding in the US state of Kentucky has killed 37 people, including several children, and the state's governor says the death toll could rise. Hundreds of people are missing, and search and rescue teams are struggling to reach areas isolated by floodwaters. Flooding has destroyed bridges and swept away entire homes. Repairs to public infrastructure are expected to cost millions. Iguanas have been discovered naturally reproducing in Ecuador's Galapagos Islands for the first time in more than a century. Galapagos National Park said scientists and rangers have found the offspring of more than 3,000 iguanas that were reintroduced to Santiago Island in 2019. The return of the species to the islands means these animals can once again play their important role in the ecosystem.
En la expedición realizada en la isla Santiago a cargo de científicos y guardaparques se logró encontrar estructuras poblacionales de la iguana terrestre traslocada en el 2019 de manera exitosa. Hemos encontrado machos, hembras y juveniles y también neonatos. Esto quiere decir que las iguanas en Santiago están reproduciéndose de manera exitosa y por supuesto ocupan el rol ecológico que corresponde.
A man in Florida has taken on the challenge of cleaning up the state's mangrove forest. He has removed tons of garbage from the fragile wetlands on his own. As John Van Trieste reports, after years of work, his campaign has finally started to attract attention.
Armed with a black trash bag, Andrew Otazo combs the mangrove swamps of southern Florida, hunting for garbage. Most of it has washed down from the streets of Miami. Some has been dumped here. Whatever fits goes into the bag. Otazo's been doing this kind of solo cleanup for years.
I've been coming out here since I was 13, and for as long as I've been trekking into the mangroves, there's been trash everywhere, and it's been really frustrating because as I got older and I learned more about the importance of the mangroves as a keystone ecosystem, I realized how much damage it was doing to local wildlife.
Otazo's latest campaign, 117 days long, collected more than 10 tons of garbage. He says the stints, sometimes 12 hours straight, were grueling.
I found enough car parts to build my own F-150 if I wanted to. Batteries, bumpers, doors, furniture, mirrors, you name it. If humanity makes it, I have found it in the mangroves.
But Otazo's campaign is as much about raising awareness as it is about clearing trash. He once ran a marathon with a backpack filled with 35 pounds of mangrove trash to make his point.
I've picked up 10 tons, 20,000 pounds of trash over 117 days. It's not a victory. It doesn't feel like an accomplishment. I will keep doing this to 30, 40, 50, 60. Hopefully, at some point, policymakers will fix this problem so I can stop.
Otazo knows his campaign isn't a long-term solution, but he says local politicians have started paying attention, meaning his hours of hauling trash from the muck may end up being worth it. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
It's said people eat with their eyes, and that's especially true for artists who paint food. But Taiwanese illustrator Leslie had to completely rethink her art. This is her story.
地方去吃到各种美食，然后把这些东西全部画下来。
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Stay safe and see you next time.